Morning.
Good morning.
All right, we're recording. It's October 27th. Thank you everybody for being here for our economic development meeting. I'm Chad Koulis, Executive Director of the Midway Chamber. And at this point, I want to turn it over to our committee chair, Terry Baniszewski. Terry.
Oh, Chad, thanks. Letting me help with the welcome. He said he was going to do a short welcome. That was a short welcome. Thank you guys for all turning in this morning. And as Chad mentioned, I'm the chair of the Economic Development Committee this year, and I'm Vice President of Business Development with Sunrise Banks. We're really happy that everybody's tuning into these monthly virtual meetings, which, you know, we miss our lunches, we miss having our Subway sandwiches, but we're still covering content, and we're thankful that you're all coming in. And I just want to do a shout out to the Economic Development Committee, of which Russ Peterson is one of our members. Welcome, Jamey, we see you. And Russ is the founding partner of Clever Architecture. He's a principal architect and strategist, and Russ has over 30 years, I'll say over 30 years of experience in architecture and design. He's also a board member of the Midway Chambers. So at this time, I just want to thank Russ for being the moderator for this conversation, and I'll turn it over to Russ.
Well, hi, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for being these tiny little squares on my screen. I'll be your debate moderator today, and here is my mute button. No, I'm just kidding. Figured we needed to start with a little laugh. This is a really interesting and kind of near and dear topic to me right now, because there are a lot of things that this affects for my business personally and for my personal life, actually. And how this came about was I had a project I was working on with a client to redo their deck this summer. They have a pool, big pool deck, upper level deck, multi-level landings on it. And as we were building the deck and as we were working towards getting the deck completed, we started to run out of materials. And in the end, this gentleman had to go to 11 different Menards across the Twin Cities to find enough 5/4 boards to do enough of his deck. And it wasn't even enough to do the whole project. It was only enough to keep it safe and to get it to a certain point. We've had several projects like that where materials have been in short supply or take long-term orders. Right now, if you're looking to order a refrigerator, I'm telling you, you better go now because it's going to be a while before you get one. The same with rugs and furniture and a lot of other materials. So we talked about having a forum with experts in the industry, which we have today, on what's going on in manufacturing, shipping, construction, supplying materials, trying to understand what we think will happen and how you can, as a business owner or business member, help you and your clients to complete projects or get where you need to go, or even in your personal life, make good decisions. So I'm really honored today to have the three people we have with us. Dawn Montez, who is here. She's the little lady with the red glasses over there, right? She is the owner of Traffic Management and Shotgun Express. It's a trucking and logistics company, and they do traffic management work, commercial products essentially around the whole nation. She does both local and over the road components, primarily to Texas. Then we have Tim McMahon, who is the co-owner and CEO of Forest Specialties. Hi, Tim. You'll see him wave. They do primarily lumber and building products. He's been in the business, products industry business since 1985. They do a lot of soft wood lumbers and high-end products. And then, of course, we have Jamey Flannery, who is a member of the Midway Chamber and on our board of directors as well. And she is the second generation owner of Flannery Construction, which is near the Midway. And they do multifamily and commercial work. So we had a chance to preview what was going on from these three experts. And I have to say, I was really floored and enlightened by the information they have and how people are adjusting and what's going on in the world right now in their industries and how it affects so many people. So what I'd like to do is, I would like each of them to say a little bit more about what they do and who they are. You can tell a funny story about, whether you actually have sweatpants on or not this morning, or you can just talk about who you are, and just briefly give our group kind of an idea of what you think is important in this conversation. And then I have some questions we're going to go through. If as a group, any of you have questions, it's best to post it in the chat. Chad will get to the questions at some time and sort of insert them wherever we can. Or if I have a chance to read them, I can try and do that as well. But I have kind of a group of 5 questions laid out from our preview session that we can go through as well. So, and if you have any questions for me or anything you want to say, you can also in the chat post something there. So with that, Dawn, let's go to you, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everybody. I have been in the logistics and trucking arena for over 30 years. My logistics company, Traffic Management, I've owned for 23 years. And that company is basically, we're like a travel agent for freight. For commercial freight, we help companies get their finished goods and their raw materials throughout North America by rail, truck, airplane, you name it. And then I also own Shotgun Express. I've owned that for 7 years, and that is it's mainly a local trucking company that does dock truck deliveries around the Twin Cities area, like within a 100-mile radius. We deal with a lot of manufacturing companies, a lot of commercial. We deal with building products companies like ABC out in Chanhassen. And then both those companies are based in Blaine. I'm also, personally, I am Tony Mendoza, got me onto the Minnesota Music Coalition board, which I am the vice chair of, and I absolutely love it. It is a great nonprofit. And that's about it for me. I've got some dogs and yeah.
That sounds good. Thanks, Dawn. Let's go to Tim next, and just tell us a little bit about yourself, Tim. Oh, you have to unmute, Tim. I know, I do it all the time. It's like going into a store. I always get halfway there and I don't have my mask and I got to go back.
I don't do enough of these Zoom meetings. I'm in the office every day, so I don't have this opportunity very often, but well, thanks for having me. I appreciate being invited. My cousin Matt Myers from Spire Credit Union had asked me to get involved with this, and so I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all today. As you know, I'm with Forest Specialties. I've co-owned that company for about 10 years. We do distribute roofing products, siding, windows, and so forth in the Twin Cities area to contractors. And we've also got our lumber business, which is more of a higher end type of a distribution that is based down in Iowa, and we ship all throughout the Midwest with that. So kind of a two-pronged business that we do here. I've been in the business since my high school days back in the mid 80s. So got a little bit of background in roof trusses, lumber, kind of the whole gamut of the thing here. So it's an interesting time in this industry. I'll tell you what, I've never in this amount of time seen lumber shortages nor pricing do what it's doing until now. It's unprecedented. It's crazy. So I'll look forward to kind of talking more about that as we go today.
That's great. We'll get to that in our first question right away, so you have a chance. Jamey, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
You look great from my end. Jamey was having a little trouble with her computer this morning, so we're trying to make sure it's okay.
Well, you can't hear me, I suppose.
No, we can hear you, Jamey.
Oh, you can. Okay, good,
Yes.
because my computer just froze. So I think that two things that Tim just said. If we were having a COVID drinking game, unprecedented and you're on mute would probably be two of the key phrases. So for Flannery Construction, we're a mid-sized general contractor based in the Midway, and we do multifamily new and renovation and commercial new and renovation. So that's offices, restaurants, and any commercial type space. About 50% of our work is with nonprofits. And I am a St. Paul native, born and raised. I have moved across the river, which is an okay town as well. And Flannery Construction, my dad started it in the early 80s. Started doing renovations of historic homes in the Crocus Hill area. And since then, we've grown to completing 99-unit apartment buildings and very significantly larger projects than that. I purchased the company 5 years ago. I've been in and around the company my entire life as a paid employee for the past 17 years. And like I said, purchased the company 5 years ago, just in time to deal with this.
Sorry. Timing's everything sometimes, isn't it? I know. So let's get to some questions. So for my panelists, the first question I have is, what impacts do you see that are having delays in the supply chain? So are there things specific to either your industry or in related industries that you think are having sort of the biggest delays in the supply chain? So let's start with Dawn, if you're okay with answering that, Dawn.
Yeah, I mean, I, like everybody, noticed stuff missing at Target, spices, stuff that, in the ethnic food area. I'm not sure why that is gone, but so yeah, there's definitely some issues, but I'm not 100% sure what's behind them. I know that there have been backlogs at the ports of containers coming in and not being able to get the containers into, the interior of the country. I ordered a mattress on September 3rd for my parents online, and it's still not here. I mean, I don't know where it's coming from.
So Dawn, one of the things you mentioned in our preview session that I thought was fascinating was that in the trucking industry and here, you felt pretty secure that we could move stuff around and, do what we needed to do. But you had noticed that there were some shortages in the southern part of the United States and maybe the coasts of people who were actually, doing logistics.
Yeah, well, there's also starting to be a driver shortage again. I think when COVID hit, a lot of the drivers, the older drivers, were like, I guess it's time to retire. And I think that that's starting to affect the market. There in transportation, there's like any market, you either have a shipper advantage or a trucker advantage. And when the shippers have the advantage, the prices are super low. Truckers are, they have lots of open trucks available. And when you move to the driver advantage or the trucker advantage, the prices go sky high because there just aren't enough trucks to haul everything in the country. And that's where we're at right now. But it's mostly, I think, because there's a bigger driver shortage than there was a year ago. Because I mean, I feel like we're moving as much as being produced. I think manufacturing is just behind, in everything.
That's a good segue to Tim, because he was talking a little bit about seeing that in terms of the manufacturing of some of the supplies he needs to get for his business. Tim, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, particularly in the cedar business, Russ, you're dealing with that deck, but there's certain items within the supply chain right now that are still impossible to get. Some of it's starting to loosen up, but cedar is one thing for sure that you still can't find. And what that causes is, jobs being delayed or canceled, and prices obviously are increasing on things. And then, then who feels the brunt of that? Do we as a supplier? Does Jamey as a builder, or does the end user, or do all three of us? But regardless of how it is, it makes for a tough time for all of us.
One of the things I was reading is that in terms of manufacturing some products, especially people took PPP money and then or took the sort of government buyout, went home, and then became afraid to come back because they didn't think the environments they were at were safe. I don't know, Tim, if you've encountered that with any of the manufacturers or not, but I'm wondering if that's relative.
Yeah, that's true, and particularly in industries where the people going to work may not be making the highest wage in the world. They took the unemployment, the enhanced unemployment, I guess we can call it, and granted that ran out at the end of July, but a lot of those people still haven't come back to work for whatever reason. I think a lot of it's feeling safe in the workplace and what have you, but that is still causing some backlogs, particularly in the cedar and the OSB industry.
Yeah, I can understand that. So Jamey, what do you think, by the time products are getting to you and you're having to actually do something with them, right? What kind of delays are you seeing that, help or hurt one way or the other?
Well, so from what we're hearing from our suppliers and vendors is, if you take a window, for example, you might have 15 parts that you need in order to make a specific window. And if you're missing one of those parts, the window's not going to get manufactured. So, and then if you've had any shutdowns, or if you're operating at half staff, or, a percentage of your staff, in order to keep the physical distance that you need to right now, for safety's sake, then you're really, then you have a backlog, you're missing a piece, and it's going to be a while before you get your window. So that can be applied to lumber or panels for panelized construction, cabinets, appliances, windows, doors, light fixtures, siding, shingles. Those are some of the areas where we're seeing some we're seeing impacts of the shortage. And basically, it's a delay, but it's also a cost issue, and time is money as well. So anytime that we have a delay, especially if we have liquidated damages on a project, which means that if we're not done by a specific date, we have to start paying per unit, per day that we deliver the product late. The contracts that we have entered into before times, nobody had pandemic in their contract as a cause for reasonable delay. So that's been a real challenge to work with owners on existing contracts to determine, well, the cost of lumber increased, of the raw materials anyway, increased 100%. If you take a large project, that's a 6-digit increase. We could be talking $200,000 to $500,000 increase on a project of the size that we work on anyway. So that can definitely give you heartburn. We're handling it in several ways, both internal operations and in terms of external, for contracts that are coming up. So we've got a few ways that we're handling it, and I can get into that now, or I can get into that later. But I would say time and money are the biggest impacts of these shortages.
So that's fascinating. We've had some projects, for instance, with windows, like you said, because people like windows, right? Where you know, there's a lot in terms of just sequencing of how you put a building together, right? And so that can cause delays in other areas, or you know, people have taken risks we've seen to like order the windows before the openings have been finally measured, and then the windows get there and they don't fit because the measurement isn't as accurate or the situation was difficult. So are you seeing things like that causing delays as well?
Yeah, we are seeing, were you talking about one of my projects just then?
No, I was not.
I'm kidding. but we are seeing precisely that, where we've ordered doors, or we've ordered specific, like we've ordered storefront glass, and we're just building around it because it's too long of a lead time for a small project. So we're doing things out of sequence. We're also finding that we have to, typically we would, once we enter into a contract with the owner, then we are able to negotiate our subcontracts after that. And usually you do your first priority, your high priority things that are coming up first. You do those subcontracts first, and then, your appliance subcontractor might be the last one. Well, now everything needs to be let within the first, right away, basically, in order to lock in pricing. And so that's a significant burden on our project managers and our admin staff.
So we've got lots of, not lots, but customers coming to us and they want, pricing right away in the beginning of design before we've even designed anything. And I have to kind of give them the bad news that, it's one thing to have a budget and estimate based on a budget, but at this point, even trying to price things that early in the process, you might even have a challenge once you have all the drawings completed and you're starting to order materials, that it might even change because it's so much in flux. So what are, I guess, all three of you telling your clients about these delays and what they can expect? That would be interesting. Dawn, do you want to go?
Well, I mean, basically, my clients, their delays, they're not necessarily delays as much as it's the prices increased dramatically in the past year. So, they're having to pay $1,000 more to get a load moved from Texas back to Minneapolis than they were paying a year ago. And that, eventually trickles down to the consumer. So we all end up paying for it. We move a lot of coffee out of Texas, green coffee that they roast up here. And yeah, the cost of those truckloads have increased $1,000, which is, it's like a 35 to 40% increase.
I was reading online a profile of people who were buying groceries and what their expenses were like. And a couple of the people were saying that their bi-weekly grocery bill had gone up $30 to $50. So over the course of a month, that's another $100, $150, whatever you have to come up with.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm assuming that, that one of the escalations in that cost is through the trucking industry.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I think the appliances, the mattresses, the food, home renovations, I mean, all that stuff, it's just flying off the shelves, and everybody's behind in making it. And so, a lot of the loads end up being, expedited loads where they're paying extra to get them up here so they can fulfill orders, whatnot. So yeah, it's definitely a new game. It's not, it doesn't feel normal. When I go to work every day, I'm like, this just does not feel normal. Like, I feel like we're in this surreal world, and eventually we'll come out of it. But,
I think that's one of the things we don't address the most is sort of the emotional impact behind all of this as well, and it's, it affects every one of us. So think about the person who's making that one part for the window, and whether they felt safe coming in that day to work or not, or whether they had a parent who got COVID and had to go to a hospital and they're beside themselves. I thought those situations, how that impacts every one of them. I have a friend who is head of the Roger Maris Cancer Center in Fargo, and they talk about, the hospital being absolutely full, but more than that, she talks about not wanting to harm her patients and their families. So she made the choice not to leave her house except to go to work. So she said, I decided if I was going to be bound to my house for an entire year, I was going to order all new furniture, which is what she did, right? So these are the kinds of decisions we have going on.
Did she ever get the furniture?
I don't. That's a good question. I haven't followed up with it. I have clients who are waiting months for furniture, but so many people, had vacation money set aside, and if they didn't use it for, survival, many of them used it to do home renovation projects. So then you see like the demand on, timber for decks, because, most guys will start with a deck because it's an easy thing for them to do, right? So I just think about all those little things in our lives that affect it. So I don't know about you, Tim. Have you noticed, what your clients are saying or doing and how it's affecting them relative to these shortages?
Well, I think everybody back in April got used to the fact that commodity items are going to be in short supply. So when you couldn't find Kleenex and toilet paper on the shelves, it was just a matter of time before the rest of it was going to be a problem. I think what we're trying to do with some of our customers, particularly those that are doing cedar roofs right now, is okay. You want medium cedar shakes. We don't have those right now. We don't know when we're going to get those, but here we've got taper saws. Can use those, and so you try to offer alternatives, and oftentimes that works because nobody else is going to have the material either. And as long as you can try to solve the problem, or at least offer an alternative for that customer, they're not only appreciative, you might gain some loyalty that way as well. So it's working for us a little bit, but boy, when you cannot find the commodity items that you need and you're selling from empty shelves right now, and you really can't promise when something is going to be in, it's difficult. You come into work, like Don says, and it's a whole different situation. You're used to pounding the pavement and going out and trying to sell things. And right now, we're just trying to fend people off a little bit. You're trying to help instead.
Definitely. Terry brought up a good point in the chat. If supplies are getting harder to get and it slows projects, it's impacting how many employees can work and what you can do in a job. So, like, how are your companies addressing this? So maybe this is a good question to start with Jamey. If you've got big changes in materials, it's going to impact, how you run your projects and your employees. So what do you think?
Well, I'll actually start with the fact that much of our project load historically has been occupied multifamily renovation, meaning that the tenants are in their units while we're doing some type of renovation, whether it's kitchens or bathrooms or painting and flooring. And so that came to a screeching halt in March when COVID, when the lockdown started, and we could see that coming. So we were wrapping things up prior to that. And so now we focus primarily on our multifamily and unoccupied commercial projects because those are the projects where both the clients and our personnel can feel safe. We're just starting to come up with our plan for working in occupied multifamily settings again, but it costs more money because tenants have to be relocated. We can't be in there at the same time as the tenants, and we have significant increases in our costs for cleaning. That's not related to the supply chain, but it's part and parcel with some of the stressors that we're dealing with during COVID. In terms of workers, we're we seem to be doing okay in terms of having enough work for our people. We're not hiring new people, and we did have a PPP loan. So when we were a little bit slow, we were able to pay our people, whether or not they had a full 40, maybe they had a 32-hour week. And we were also able to, during the civil unrest in the Midway area and Lake Street, we were able to work with a couple of our owners to rebuild their properties at a very reduced cost. So, so those are ways that we've kept people going. But back to this discussion, it is challenging to schedule our projects because we don't know exactly when materials are coming or and how much material we're getting. So that's a challenge to have starts and stops like that.
So Jamey, are there like better or different suppliers you've had to adjust to, or some pipelines that are different than others for materials?
We have definitely, like Tim said, offered alternatives to clients. So we're with the lumber issue, people are dealing with it in different ways. We've gone out to every player in the market locally, and they all say the same thing. So they're at least consistent. And people are dealing with it in different ways. Some projects that are currently under construction are getting out of the ground and then stopping and waiting for costs to come down. Some, like our projects with time frames related to funding, we're having to negotiate with the owner to determine how we're going to absorb that cost within the project. On projects that we're waiting, that we're about to enter contracts, we have two examples right now. One is opting for a wait and see approach. So we'll enter into a stipulated sum contract. So we're saying this is the cost of the project, but we get 60 days to negotiate our contracts, our subcontracts. And we know that, we'll wait until the last possible moment to negotiate with our lumber suppliers for the panels. But, I don't know if they'll hold the price that they're quoting today. Maybe it'll be lower, but maybe it'll be higher, and that'll all be on you. We have another owner who's deciding to accept that lumber cost increase in exchange for if appliances skyrocket or some other building material skyrockets, that's Flannery's cost. So people are really approaching it in different ways and have different risk tolerances. And it's, my dad is a big sounding board for me and a trusted resource, and this is all new. Usually he's seen something before like it,
right?
But not in this particular case. So it's we're all just navigating it together, owners and contractors and suppliers, and with more and some with more and less success, depending on the working relationships.
So, Tim or Dawn, do you see anything like Dawn or Jamey's seeing in the in your specific industry and how it's affecting employees, and if you're having to make changes in terms of scheduling time, fees?
For me, all of my logistics company employees are all working from home. They've been working from home since March, and we were fortunate enough to get this awesome voice over IP phone system so that everybody can have their phones at home and it can ring. Everybody's phones will ring just like they're sitting at their desks. And so that's been a huge godsend, because employees that have kids that are in school. I have an employee that's got a baby. It's been great to have them at home. They're working awesome at home. They're getting everything done. They're talking. So that's good. The trucking company obviously cannot work from home because they have to drive the trucks. The drivers do. The only thing I'm seeing, with that is like my drivers are not allowed on docks anymore. They can't check the products to make sure that they're correct or in good shape. So we've had a few issues here and there where we'll show up and something, we weren't able to check the order. The driver wasn't able to. But I'm kind of happy they're not allowed on the docks, only because that keeps them away from other people, and they're all wearing masks and trying to be as careful as possible. We haven't had anybody that has gotten sick, so that's good. But yeah, it's I don't know why I didn't know about this voice over IP phone thing 5 years ago.
Companies have been doing that. So it's a good thing that we can, we have at least that technology. Like I was saying earlier, I was kind of hoping we'd get to, 3D virtual reality meetings, but I don't think that's coming anytime soon.
That would be awesome. Yeah, virtual reality meetings.
I'm not sure I'd want that though, because of the virtual donuts, I don't think would taste the same. Just saying. So Tim, how about you? What are you seeing in the employees and how that might be affecting your industry?
Well, at least our company specifically, we kind of streamlined our operation coming into this year a bit. We got out of some product lines that were more commodity type and less specialized that we were good at. So with that, we kind of downsized a bit, and being as we sit on 17 acres and we got a pretty large office here, we really all have our own space now. And so, people coming in the door obviously are wearing face masks and they need to call as they come in. And drivers are good about making sure that, hey, if I'm going out to a site, what exactly is the situation I'm coming into out there? So, for us, oddly enough, it's been almost business as usual this year. I hate to say it, but I mean, that's the reality of it for us. So.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. One of the questions I have that I think is kind of most vital to me, at least for my industry, and maybe a number of our guests today too, is sort of what do we think is going to happen in the future relative to the things that we're seeing now. So one of the things I've been telling our clients is that do your design work now, because you want to be ready in the spring to do a project and you want to get in the pipeline pretty fast, because we may still be behind in materials. And if you wait too much longer, the cost of your project may escalate and it may not even be able to be constructed in time, if that's the case. So I'm kind of wondering what the three of you are thinking about in terms of predictions about how this situation will affect all of us, and what do you think, in terms of timing that might be. Now I know none of you have a magic ball, and you don't, we can't quite pluck things out of the future, but it does help to get some expertise from your industry and see, what you might be thinking. So let's start with Dawn, if you don't mind. Throw you under the bus right away.
Yeah, I think back to 2008 and 2009 when, the bottom fell out of our economy. And it was like crickets in our office. I mean, nobody was calling us to move anything. And I would call people to be like, hey, are you guys using someone else? No, we just don't have any orders, right? It doesn't feel like that now. It feels like everybody's a little busy. Everybody's got some things to do. I think the hardest hit people are the restaurants and the movie theaters. But I think manufacturing is still, I think they're still making stuff. They're still moving stuff. It doesn't feel like there's no orders in the pipeline. I mean, my warehouse is almost empty because everybody's taking stuff out of it. So I feel like they're going to have to fill the warehouses back up eventually. But I don't feel like we will be back to completely normal until probably there's a vaccine, probably next summer is my guess. That's widely available for everyone to get. You know, I don't know, who knows what's going to happen this winter. It's a lovely place to live, but it's going to be tough this winter with nowhere to go.
No, one of the members of the chamber said we're all going to be buying snowmobile suits and, you know, huddling around fires outside because we're going to go stir crazy in our homes. So
well, and that'll be good for Polaris because I think they've had a couple bad years with no snow, right?
probably true. Well, maybe we'll have snow, right?
Mm.
I know. How about you, Tim? What do you think about the future?
Well, if you're going to huddle around those fires this winter, you won't have any wood to burn. So I don't know what you're going to be burning.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, no, really the good news is we're starting to see the lumber market soften somewhat. I mean, it had to because it was going crazy here, but the supply issues we've had all summer are starting to really ease right now. I've alluded to the OSB, which is sheathing for houses. That's still in tight supply because of backlogs, and cedar is still a problem. But plywood, for the first time that I can ever remember, is cheaper than OSB right now. So if you wanted to use that, you know, there's these alternatives that you can use. So we're going to see everything drop throughout the winter as it usually does. And come spring, I think it's not going to come back up to the levels it was. And I think Don's right. As soon as the vaccine comes out, I think we're going to see things level out again. One caveat to that, though, is that because the market is falling like it is right now, suppliers like myself and lumber yards really aren't taking a stocking position on anything. So we're going to continue to see these empty warehouses until the lumber market kind of bottoms out, or at least it looks like it's going to. Then you're going to start seeing people put material on the ground, and then we get some normalcy going.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I can see that. Do you think that there will be any specific products other than what, you know, we have right now, you said in terms of cedar, that are going to be in short supply for now?
For a while, you're going to see that. You're going to see commodity items, not commodity, like Trex decking, some of the composite items. That's what I was trying to say. Those are still going to be tight here for a little bit too. It's just as raw material, you know, for some of these products is not available, it keeps creating the shortage. But really, I think come spring here, everything is going to kind of level out.
Okay, well, that's good to know. How about you, Jamey? What are you seeing in terms of the future? What are you telling your clients and advising people to think about?
Well, we have an okay pipeline going into 2021 and into 2022. We're getting new business calls on a fairly regular basis, so those are good signs and good things for us. We even have a few restaurant and hospitality type of clients who are thinking, well, it's not going to last forever, so I may as well do this work now or expand now so that we're ready when things open up. You know, I guess we're all kind of reading the same tea leaves and trying to figure out what the future looks like. And I don't necessarily know any better than anyone else. I think that I think that now that plants and manufacturing facilities are opening, several of them shut down completely at the beginning of at the beginning of COVID. So they are starting to open. We're seeing a softening of those markets, but I think it'll be a while before all the orders are caught up with. and all the supply chain issues are worked out. So I agree with Dawn that it'll be, summer next year before people are going back to work and with, a little bit more normalcy and regularity. But I think that it'll still take a while to work out some of the kinks that we're discovering right now.
So the next thing I was going to do was ask if there were any questions, and I did get one here from Chad right away with delays. What companies do you mean thinking about design work now, builds later? Chad, can you explain that a little bit? The question you have?
Yeah. So as we're hearing about delays in projects that could be happening for whatever reason, maybe, there's that one part of the window that isn't ready, so you have to delay your project. So if a company is looking at their timeline saying, I wanted to start this in, go back a few months, I want to start this in September, and now I'm told I can't do it for months. What else can they be doing in the meantime that's productive toward the end goal of finishing the work? So doing some design work. And Russ, this is where somebody like you would come in on the architecture part. And part of that question really is toward you, Russ, are companies seeking you out now to get some of that design work done, knowing that they're going to have to experience delays on the actual build?
Well, I think there is some truth to that we have people who they waited out a period of time, they kind of sat down and thought, well, let's see what's happening. And now they see there are delays in some things, but they're a little more optimistic about it. So I think we're seeing people trying to plan for what we might call the other side. Like Dawn said, if we think it's going to be summer or some other point, they're kind of betting their hopes on that we're going to have some solution of some kind that will help by that time frame. So I have some people who just decided they needed to live and continue to live, right? And so they're doing their project as though they need to live, and we'll deal with whatever comes up as it comes up. I think the bigger challenge we're having is in the pricing arena, which is, architecture, for instance, can be priced different ways based on, the scope of a project, based on the amount of money you spend, but if that is in constant flux and changing, it's really hard for us to give people an accurate fee, let's say, for what they need to do. So now I'm doing ranges, like it will be from this to this, or the scope changes, this is what will happen, and then the other problem is that it's harder for clients because they have to meet a lot more. All of a sudden I'm substituting materials or changing designs or doing something because something wouldn't work or wouldn't be there in time. So their time is also committed more. Like Jamey was saying earlier in our preview meeting about how much it's changed her project management and how much time she's having to spend doing project management. And I asked her, how much are you charging for that and getting, and she said, I'm not getting that, right? We're all sacrificing to some degree. So I think it would be kind of interesting to hear from Jamey a little bit about how she is working with her clients and what that's affecting them and, their relationship or how they approach the project. Are they doing more design build? Or are they trying to get as much design done ahead of time? I think those are really good questions.
Absolutely. We're trying to get as much design done ahead of time. So have all of your finishes, all of your tile selections, all of your paint colors, your palette, all of that selected beforehand so that we can be checking on availability and lead times, and then making changes as needed. But if you have a 3-month project and your tile is 3 months out, under normal circumstances, you might not order that until 30 days into the project. Right now, with that piece of knowledge in mind, we're ordering everything on, day one. So if all of that work is done ahead of time, and all of it is thought about, then you're setting yourself up for success. I mean, we're always, we have the benefit of having our own carpenters and laborers on staff. So we can be nimble and adjust to changes in the field as they come and we can, okay, this piece is delayed, so we're going to work over here for a while until that's worked out. So we have that opportunity, but I couldn't agree more with Russ that all of the design decisions need to be made before the project starts.
One of the things I tell people is that, it used to be, if you August, because all the Italians go to the coast and there's no factories really doing anything, right? And so that's one thing you can know if you know an industry and how it works, but this is a little unpredictable because you don't really know what's going to happen the next day in an industry, right? What happens if all of a sudden a factory gets flooded with COVID and it has to shut down, then that material doesn't come all of a sudden. So there's a lot of unpredictability. And I think part of the way to manage that unpredictability is to get what you can done early and fast and get it done in such a way that you have some options so that you're not, there's not just one direction to go in. So like Jamey said, if all of a sudden, one paint manufacturer couldn't supply paint, well, we can go from, one to another if we need to. So are we ready with that? I think that those things are important to think about so that you're a little more nimble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions or any examples of delays that you've experienced personally? Even anybody in the group who's a guest listening today, it would be interesting to hear if you have any issues that have come up for you as well.
And I know I said to put it in the chat, but I think at this point, feel free to just make a comment on it. I see Jim Wagner said he asked if it's more difficult to schedule subcontractors such as electricians and plumbers.
It's pretty difficult to schedule people who don't have their materials. So yes, it is more difficult to schedule, certainly electricians because of light fixtures. But I would say that the other issue that we're dealing with is trying to minimize the amount of people we have on site. So, you might have had a plumber and an electrician working in this and somebody else working in the same bathroom at the same time. Well, now you don't. Now you've got one or the other. So it is a little challenging to schedule all of that work in while creating a safe work atmosphere for the field people.
Yep. I think the other thing is, it affects one thing or another pretty dramatically. Like I'll just give a quick example here. I have a hot tub in my backyard that's 20 years old and it's small, not very big. But I like to get it in the winter. And I thought, I'm going to really need that this winter, right, to get outside. But it wasn't working. And so I had the hot tub repair person come out. It took him, a week, 10 days to get here. And he looked at it. Well, the breaker was going. So then I had to call the electrician. He needed to replace the breaker for it. Well, that took 10 days to get because those breakers aren't readily available, right? So then it was another week for him to get out here, right? He got out here. Then the hot tub guy had to come right back out at some point, right? Well, that took another week or 10 days because, he's running behind with what's going on. In the end, we found out that the hot tub just doesn't work anymore. There's no way we can use it, right? Well, here I am now in the winter and I don't have one, right? And I probably won't be able to get one at this point. So there goes my plan for how I was going to stay sane this winter. So now you're all getting warning right now that I'm not going to be sane this winter because I don't have my hot tub, right? I think that's just sort of the story is that, it affects one thing and another thing and then another thing and another thing. And pretty soon down the chain, you're just months behind. And so, having people like Tim and Dawn and Jamey who can stay on top of that for us, I think is really important. I know that, I rely on everybody's expertise to try and see if we can't move things along in such a way that, we don't all go a little crazy, right? So, were there any other questions, Chad?
Nope, no other questions. We're almost at time, so time to wrap up. If there's any last thoughts.
One thing I want to say is that is that not only are there delays, but there's changes in the ETAs. So sometimes they say, that they're going to have something, but then since it's a supply chain, if they don't get their product from whoever they had to get it from to produce the things, so then that all changes. So then it's pretty hard to plan with like ETAs when there's like a lot of changes, and then also trying to get things from domestic suppliers. I've been doing a lot more domestic supplier things, myself, trying to get things from more domestic suppliers than opposed to the imports. So I thought that was a kind of like a bright side.
So how is your overall supply? Are you able to supply your customers?
Oh yeah, yep, definitely. What I do is I do a lot of consolidation. So in my warehouse, we just consolidate stuff. So I just can consolidate. So like, let's say if like Jamey said, to put a window together, it takes like 18 pieces. So like for us, to put a bedroom set together probably takes about 12 different pieces. Like the bed may take 4 pieces, the dresser mirror takes 2, and then and so on and so forth. So then like we just consolidate. So then we'll get a mirror in, and then we'll get the dresser, and then we just like wait until we get the rest of everything else. So like, as opposed to trying to wait for the shipper to have everything available, or the shipper. So then we just get pieces at a time, and then we consolidate, and then we build up our inventory for the future. So then that way, like, so then it was like, there's like a huge delay, and then now product's flowing because we're kind of like, we already bought the stuff from before. So we're kind of like supplying from the past. I don't know how to describe it, but it's more or less like there's
a lot of sequence, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was just going to quickly say that I really like the fact that you have moved to domestic suppliers, because I think, that's definitely what we need right now. Yes, obviously there's stuff you can't get domestically, but you're going to get it a lot quicker and a lot easier if you're buying it domestically than importing it right now, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But
okay. Well,
on the flip, a lot of guys are delayed too, because a lot of those parts come from overseas too. So, but still better with domestic though.
Yeah. Well, I would just like to thank our panelists, Tim, Dawn, and Jamey today for really giving us a great deal of competent information and understanding about how we need to proceed in terms of our projects and our personal lives. And I think it's all really helpful. If anybody has any other questions, I know you can reach out to either I or Chad, and we can see if we can help you or get connected. I'm going to turn this over to Chad here so he can finish what he needs to do. I know we're running a little long, so thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Russ. Well, I don't have much else to do. Thank you, Russ, and the panelists. Good conversation. We'll be back in November with another session on the topic of recovery for economic development, and hope to see you then. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.